So we've already talked about in the last two episodes of standard behavior in your standard campaigns
For monsters.
for monsters. Of
Or
like
NPCs that
you
are fighting against
you
you.
open up a room in a random dungeon you grabbed, and this is how they behave.
Yep.
Now, if you were like taking like a Ravenloft or a Castle Greyhawk or a Return of Temple of
Some sort
Elemental
of
Evil,
big organized
they're
group.
holding an area for some nefarious reason and you're impeding on that,
Right.
the behavior is a lot different.
Absolutely it is.
So we should talk about that.
Right. So let's just, so in a natural cavern, like a natural cave,
Mm-hmm.
you might have different ecosystems.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like on level 2A, let's say, is where the mushroom people live. And they're in an uneasy alliance with the big bear that lives in 2B, the areas of 2B. And then in 2C, there might be some goblinoids that also don't really mess with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And they're running like some sort of slave trade thing for illithids, just basically they're bringing people from the surface and selling them to illithids for slaves so they don't get moved into slavery. And there's this uneasy alliance. Basically, it's like, if you don't hit us, we don't hit you. And what that means is, if you were to go in and hit the mushroom people, the goblins and the bear are not coming to the aid.
Mm-hmm.
They might fortify, they may flee, they may do something different, but they're not going to come and aid the mushroom people. Now, fast forward to a different scenario, which is what we're going to talk about today, which is, so we just got through playing the Temple of Elemental Evil. Right, and actually how our DM did it to do some stuff to change up really actually embodies this.
Mm-hmm.
So you have an entire group of people that are following some element, but at the end of the day, they're also worshiping the exact same evil deity that my guess is they're trying to bring him into the world.
Yes.
So if you have that kind of scenario, right, where your players are stopping whatever, an ancient god from coming into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in this area, in this cult, is dedicated to bringing that god forth. That monster behavior, the NPC behavior that the guys you encounter is going to look a lot different than a random cavern where no one cares about the other groups. Or maybe they care dramatically, i.e., I'll pay you to go kill those guys, which is a different conversation.
Yes.
So monster behavior now looks a little different. So the entire idea here is there have been unwelcome visitors that have come in. Ideally, you're to capture, kill, and maim them in any order you can.
Yes.
So if you kill half the party and then the other half surrenders, that's perfect. You'll bring them in, you'll torture them, you'll get information out of them, you'll strip them of their goods. Which is why you can then start, like in the Temple of Elemental Evil, I think we ended up rescuing, 10 or 15 different
NPCs.
levels of NPCs because they got captured in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, because you're not the only people trying to invade this area.
Exactly. Right. Or maybe they were just got too close to one of these secret exits, didn't even realize, and they just get jumped and brought in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Point is, you have a concerted effort. You have, like, let's just say 1,000 NPCs and hirelings total. Yeah. That are committed to whatever is happening here. So let's just say summoning this ancient deity into the world so that they can all get power, prestige, and take over the world, right? Cue Pinky in the brain, we're going to take over the world, So, and Q, if it wasn't for these meddling kids, the party, we would have done it. But so what happens then is, so you walk into a room, and there's like 6 guys in the room, and they're all eating dinner, and they didn't hear you, and it's a surprise round. So how come all 6 jump up and rush you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because in an ecosystem, that makes sense, right? All 6 guys jump up and rush you because they're the only 6 guys.
Yes.
Like, that's their deal, right? They're the only 6 guys. But they're not the only 6 guys in this case. There's 1,000 other guys in this. Mm-hmm. So one of those guys is going to run for the other door.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because help.
Reinforcements. Right?
They're all together.
Right.
Now, they might not come to help those people. They might just entrench in a fort.
Right. But that means there's no surprise round for you next room.
Or you might actually get the surprise round on you.
The other way, right? You're ambushed.
Or the other thing is, so you hit their guard outpost because that's right there.
Yep.
And as the DM, you know that there's like 12 more guys around the corner for a couple corridors down.
Yep.
You can't tell me that combat's silent. You can't tell me that you're gonna have that fireball the wizard just cast is not gonna ring down the corridor.
Yeah, fireballs. I mean, let's just ask. Like, think about it. So a ball of fire is being created out of nothing.
Whoosh.
Yeah, it sucks the air out of everything. I mean,
and you can't tell me somebody who survived that's not gonna scream when they get hit with fire. And
even if you don't survive it, I think you're gonna have the initial scream. As you burn to death. I mean, in this regard, it's like, think of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like and I don't want to talk about the last season, but really the last like 3. But that said, when the dragon is setting people on fire, even though they're dead, they're still screaming.
There's still screams.
Because they didn't die instantly. They just, I mean, and if you think about it, a round is how many seconds? 6 in D&D. And so if I kill you, it could take that full 6 seconds to die.
Yeah.
And what are you doing during that 6 seconds? Screaming. But even then, fighter versus fighter. Even then, so I hit you with my sword, but I'm having to go through your armor. I'm going to have to pierce through something. You can't tell me that nothing made a sound.
Clang.
Yeah.
This guy's screaming because he gets hit in the arm.
Well, so let's say I rush up and I get, let's say that, I get a full round attack. Let's say I get 3 attacks.
Yeah.
The first one hits, which means I literally cleaved through certain bits of armor and hit flesh. The second one, let's say I miss, but let's say I miss not by a lot. In that point, you could easily argue, I hit you, but your armor deflected it, right? So now it's like medieval knights. It's like, well, did he hit him? Well, yeah, he hit him, but he did no damage because he clanged off the guy's shield.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make any noise, right? It's a horrendous amount of noise happening.
Yeah.
And so here's the deal. Anybody within earshot, and this is how you should play this, is hearing this fight. Right? You can't just, I killed everybody in this room. I sneakily opened the door and we sent the rogue down the hallway, and he realized that no one had heard any of the noise for the last 6 minutes of combat in the other room.
Well,
how?
And the other thing is, they are going to have patrols. So if you just slaughtered their patrol and they hear clanging of chain going down the corridor, and they're like, what time is it? They're not supposed to be on this watch yet.
Exactly.
Who is that?
Right. And that's the other question too. It's like, if you're in a so okay, think about it this way. If you've worn really good shoes and you walk down an empty hallway,
it's loud as all.
It's loud as all. Now, I want you to make the hallway not linoleum or concrete. I want you to make it like a concrete brick stone. Right? So if you have travertine in your house, walk in really good dress shoes across your travertine floor and see what it sounds like. Now I want you to then put on 80 pounds of full plate, metal shoes, and I want you to walk down that same hallway and tell me how far down the hallway we have to get before you don't hear Mr. Dwarven full plate defender guy walking down the hallway. How many rooms does the rogue need to get out in front of?
Well, and then the other thing that, talking about the rogue.
Yeah.
So this is something that I've done as the rogue in our last thing that I've thought of, but I just didn't think to mention it.
Sure.
So I have the ever-burning torch as an amulet.
Which is glowing light.
I'm glowing. How am I hiding and moving silently when I'm literally a gleaming torch?
Yeah, right. I'm hiding. I don't think you are.
Rogue, hiding with a torch.
Yeah, exactly.
In a dark hallway.
In a dark hallway.
So which means...
Now, my black dog at midnight on the black rug in the black hallway, which is what he likes to do, totally blends in. But if he had a torch on, I would see him.
That's how the rogue should be, like our dog.
Like the stupid dog.
Is hiding. But unless you're one of the races that have dark vision, as a human, you're screwed as a rogue.
Yeah.
And a lot of humans are rogues, especially in 3.5, because of the extra feet.
I'm pretty sure my dog has a height of 20 and is always taking 10. And so...
Definitely for his trip.
Yeah, and then the trip attack. Yeah. The point is, though, what I'm trying to say here is you're going to have guys going for help. You're going to have guys making noise. You're going to have guys solidifying their positions. Let's put it to you this way, too. Let's see. So, in your home, how many of your doors are soundproof?
None.
Right? And we fight this all the time, right? Because we're trying to record in here. So, if my wife is doing dishes in the kitchen, you'll hear it.
Yeah.
Even though the kitchen is far away and our door's shut, you're still going to hear it because those sounds are going to come right through the door. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, we have like a foot thick wood doors, but there's also like huge gaps underneath these doors. So you can't tell me that there's not some sound of fighting getting through, some sound of screams, some sound of commotion.
Well, and so you might have your standard cave sound, or you might have your standard dungeon sound.
Right.
But battle's distinct.
Battle's very distinct.
Especially if you have spells. Especially. Because you're going to have screams, you're going to have...
Well,
especially, like, as far as Black Tentacles is nasty, because you're going to have people just screaming, because that's all you can do.
And they're getting, like, just beaten around. Well, here's your other fun one. So, what did you put on your bow? Oh, Sonic. Okay, so that's a screaming bow. It's literally thunder. Mm-hmm. Lightning. Okay, so now I have the sound of lightning, or, like, the sound of a taser going out. Fire, so I have the sound of fire. Cold might be fine. Like, cold might be the one that's like, okay, cool, you're not really hearing... a lot. I mean, crystallization. Acid would be fine. I mean, until it hits a person. But I mean, if you're just shooting the bow is not going to cause. But like if you're like, you're hiding and move silently, you pull out your bow and you shoot your sonic bow, and you hear this screaming of thunder down the hallway as the arrows shooting past you.
Yeah.
Not one person in the dungeon is like, that was weird. Like not one person. Is doing anything. It makes no sense to me.
Okay, well, you hear some murmurings. It kind of sounds like, hey, my wizards make a spellcraft. Yeah. They're casting a spell.
Yeah.
Why are you casting a spell on guard?
Right. How is our guard casting a spell?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the other thing, too. It's like, anyway, in a dungeon, in a fortress, if you will, like in an actual, like, this, I'm going to call it a fortress. Could be a dungeon, could be ruins, could be a castle, whatever.
Anything where they're coherent enough to work together.
Where we're all working together. Everyone's working together. They're not going to behave as if they're standard monsters. No. They're also not going to all throw themselves at you to die.
No.
They're going to go and get support. They're going to run into the next room. They're going to solidify their positions. They're going to potentially, if you're looking at a pre-made adventure, you could have this really funness where it's like, well, in this room they're fighting these 3 guys, in this room they're fighting these 4 guys. And you look at it and go, no, what's actually going to happen is the first room they're going to fight those 3 guys. One guy's going to try to get out the door and yell for help or something. The other 4 guys are going to go back into the room with the 6 guys, and they're going to set up a defensive perimeter. Mm-hmm. They're going to overturn tables. They're going to lock the door. They're going to have... They're all ready in their action. So when you open the door, they all go.
Yes.
They all go on that knit.
Well,
and so the poor rogue is now a pincushion.
Yes.
But that's how it would be played out.
And,
you know?
And also, the other thing is, so you have some chairs in your standard dining room.
Yes, you do.
So your sounds of hastily preparing is going to get covered by battle because you guys are not going to actively listen while you're getting shot at.
You can't. You can't hear anything over battle.
Okay, so the rogue opens up that room.
Yeah.
And as he tries to walk in, he has to climb over these
all these chairs. Yeah.
Chairs that have been made into like some rudimentary like pikes and things to you're going to create pseudo traps.
Yeah.
Which aren't going to be dangerous for the rogue.
No.
But if you guys are going to fight in there and you have traps strewn across, it's going to really hinder. Yep. Now they're not going to be good traps, but you're still
improvised obstacles really is what
improvised
they are.
Obstacles.
But improvised
fighter doesn't have balance.
Improvised obstacles create difficult terrain, which means it costs double movement to get through it, which means if you're fighting on it, it might be precarious, like a balance check or some other thing. It might be just it causes damage.
Yeah.
So if I hit you, you then fall back into one of the weird chairs that you're straddling.
But this is also a great time for what is standard things that they might have in the dungeon in their supplies.
Right. Yep.
Oh, they might have some cow traps. They might have a bear trap or 2 laying around.
Yeah, and throw those out. Why not?
Just throw those out because, the rogue's not necessarily going to hit them, but the rest will.
Yeah.
And rogue's not going to have time to disarm that bear trap. And
definitely not for the cow traps. So he's going to pick them up.
And the fighter's not going to willingly walk into a bear trap, but if you have a spell or your other fighter pushes him into the bear trap.
Yep, exactly. Well, we were, and we'll end with this. So one of the things is we were in this weird room that had like water and a 5-foot cone around the entire room because of the Temple of Elemental Evil. And I was like, well, wouldn't it be hilarious if you grapple the guy and just hold him underneath the water? Mm-hmm. Like just hold him in that 5-foot square.
Yeah.
like in the grapple, because if you're grappling, it's like you're wrestling. You're away from them. They're out here, and you can just literally. I'm like, you can just basically. This would be a hilarious room to just grapple somebody into the water.
Yeah.
Until they pass out.
Yeah.
And then you can drown them if you wish, or you can throw them into the area where there is air if you wish. I mean, but the point is, it's like this is this weird little like vortex of water that now allows you to actually drown somebody in the 13th level of a tower.
Yeah.
Which is a hilarious death if you think about it. So
and real quick.
Yeah.
Your fighter in full plate doesn't have the skills to get into balance and stuff like that. So he's the easiest one to exploit for balance environmental.
Checks. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude, and we'll see you next time.